have a little bit of chat about sales and selling and all that jazz, all that shenanigans. Because it's one of the big questions, one of the big hurdles, one of the big barriers that everyone's talking about at the moment is how to actually, do you know what I'm going to do? TikTok, I'm going to move you around here. This is going to make more sense. Let's pop you up here. And put you in here. Let's move you down a little bit. There we go. That's probably going to make a little bit more sense because the lighting's always so messed up. So Instagram looks super crisp. TikTok, I look like I've got the bare face of the moon. And you guys here on LinkedIn and YouTube, it all looks a little bit crazy. So what I want to be able to see if I can do on here, okay, we can do that, is I want to talk a little bit more about what can you guys be doing in 2026 to become more effective within your business or your sales career. And I focus a little bit more into the business side of it today because it's where our primary actual focus is actually within the businesses. We've helped place setters today, this week, we've placed some. So whether you're here on TikTok, whether you are here on Instagram, whether you are here on YouTube, whether you are here on LinkedIn, good morning. Right, let's just make sure that lighting all looks fine, everyone. I think that'll do lighting-wise anyway. So there's a lot that actually ends up happening, and it causes a lot of stress for a lot of businesses is trying to work out what they can adjust, what they can change, what they can do differently to actually boost up their sales. So I wanted to sort of cover that a little bit today. So whether you're here on TikTok, whether you're here on Insta, whether you're here on YouTube, LinkedIn, get yourself cozy. And sort of kind of cover a little bit more about what we're doing differently for people, some of the lessons that I'm taking out of stuff, and really see if it's valuable to you as well. Because one of the big things we look at, you've got two sides, and I'm going to change my camera. So for you guys that are on LinkedIn, you guys can get to see a little bit different to what other people are actually going to say. By the way, if you put any questions in there, in about 15 minutes, I'm going to come around to those questions because that will make life easier for you guys. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a secondary camera. So if you want to see what I'm doing on the whiteboard, you need to jump onto LinkedIn. Because again, this is just a bit more of an overview for what people are talking about. You can get a bit of context. So there's two main areas that most of the time we're going to be looking at. So we're going to end up looking at let me just change that over. There we go. You can actually read it now. The lead side, everyone talks about we need to get more leads, but actually what we need to do is talk about conversions. And one of the big things that we've just changed around within my own business to make this easier for clients is actually we are doing now a conversion audit on a business. And the reason that we're doing the conversion audit is people don't actually know exactly what the perspective what the potential is for their business itself. So what they're trying to work out is, okay, this is where I'm at now. This is what I want to try and achieve in 2026 goals. And what we've got to be able to do is assess and understand in more detail exactly what we can change, what levers and what needles to move to actually make that happen. So maybe, for example, the flip side is it's not the fact that you necessarily need to commit more leads in the business to a really high level. It could be the fact that actually your conversions suck ass. And this is what we've actually found with a lot of companies that we've been working with recently. So if you think about the drop-off points for your business at the moment, option one, you could scale out the actual people within the business. Sure, you can scale out with the people, but that comes with a huge amount of effort, huge amount of work. It actually increases the workload. It actually increases the expenditure. It also increases the level of stress. And there's a lot more expectation behind it. So that's one area that you can go into. But I actually think there's a trick that we need to focus in a little bit more when we're doing most of this stuff. And actually, when you look inside of what are you actually leaving on the table? So we spoke to a company yesterday that had a 20% conversion. Now, because there are people within their industry that have got a 10% conversion, they are now at the stage where they feel that they are actually doing far better than everyone else. We've got twice the conversion of some of these other people. And you go, that's great. But compared to exactly the potential of your business, you are still far below. It's like being second to last in a race. So what we want to be able to start thinking about more is actually with the conversions we're at now, if you think about like a location pin, what is the current conversion percentage that you're hitting for each area of the business? So let's say you've got appointment setting, let's say you've got closing, and then let's say you've got your follow-up. What are the current percentages you're seeing at each stage? And what are they compared to versus the industry high? So what are the people within your industry actually managing to convert in the right way? Because if you guys can work this out, it becomes far easier to actually move forward. And then what you end up doing is going down a rabbit hole a little bit more. So I'll change this over so you can see LinkedIn and YouTube people. So you end up with a few different boxes that you're actually working on. And that might be at the stage for you personally, but you go, okay, it's just the leads that we need in. You might be at the stage it's actually the appointment setting. It might be the closing stage that's got the problems, or it could be actually in the follow-up stage that you've got the issues. So we want to be at the stage now, but we're understanding in each one of these boxes, where are we now versus where we could be. Now, what a lot of people do is they'll put all the stress and all the strain and all the hardship into, turn that around a little bit more for the camera would help. They turn all of this stress and all of this strain and all this hardship into working out for themselves at the moment what they're actually trying to achieve. But what we want to start thinking about in a little bit more detail is if we're looking now at just throwing more people into our pot, but our appointment setting stage is slightly off, will make a massive problem for the business. If we're at the stage now, but you're sitting loads of appointments, but you're not closing them to a high enough standard, this is going to be the problem. Then you might be at the stage on the flip side, but actually you've got all of these areas, but the follow-up stage is actually the issue. That's typically not going to be the main problem for most of us. Most of it's going to come into the two pillars of the appointment setting stage and the closing stage within the business. And then a third from that, it's what happens within the other areas. What I class as the dead man zone, the DMZ. So the DMZ is the gap between each stage of where your business is at right now. And when you start working out in the DMZ, what can be fixed, what can be changed, what can be adjusted to actually fix those conversions. So when you're in the business now and you're working out where you are within the business, you start working out where you are and what you're trying to work out, what you're trying to fix. Instead of just thinking box number one, load that up more and more and more. Actually, we want to start thinking about where at the moment, if I look at the last 90 days, what has been the big drop-off point for the average lead that is a good fit for your business? What has been the biggest drop-off point? Is it the fact that you've got a good flow of leads coming in, you're getting a load of appointments, but they're not showing? Is it the fact that you're sitting loads of appointments, but they're just wanting to delay making a decision? Is it the fact that you're going through all of this stage and you're closing them, but you're not taking payment on the call, and then they're disappearing? Is it the fact that actually you're relying on quotes at the tail end of a DMZ, and that's causing you the hurdles? It's so important to really understand at each stage within your business what the conversions are and where the drop-off points are. Because until you understand where the drop-off points are, it's really hard to action what to do next within the business. And what most business owners don't want to do is they don't want to just start working crazily harder, because you're working hard enough anyway. So we don't want anyone on TikTok, Instagram, you guys, if you want to see what I'm doing on this, if you go to LinkedIn to David the Sales Angel, we've got 2 separate cameras here. So we're showing that on there. I'm just streaming to you guys because I thought, why not? So we've got to work out what we don't want, and we've got to start working out what it is we actually want to get. Now, what most people are going to say is, I want more revenue. I want more leads. I want more time back. And I want to scale my team or scale the business. Now, the problem that we're facing with a huge amount of these things is actually, let me move it over a little bit better. Lift it up a little bit, move it down a little bit, twist it around a little bit. Okay. That's better. Okay. So what you might want the revenue, you might want more leads, you want more time back to spend time with your family, your friends, doing whatever it is you do, or you might want to scale a team. But what most people don't want to go off and do is they don't want to upskill. They don't want to make decisions themselves. They don't want to put into more effort for the short term, for the long-term growth. And they don't want to change their approach. Now, the problem that we've got here is we end up with like a conflicting message. Because if you're looking to do something new, if you want to make a big change and you want that to really impact the results that your businesses get, you've got to be prepared to give up the good for the great. Now, a prime example of this can be, you could look at something where someone goes, okay, stop doing this and start doing that. And you look at it and go, I don't think that's going to make a difference. But that's why you bring in someone who's actually, you're going to lean into and take their advice fully. So whether you're here on Insta, TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, I want you to be able to think about this for a moment. What are some of the areas now that have helped you get to the altitude that you're at now, that's not serving you right now? Is no longer helping you move forward. So you're actually at the stage that you're stagnant with your growth. And I'll give you a prime example for my own business, some of the stuff that's happened with us. So maybe this will help you. So we got to this stage a year ago, but as a sole trader of what I do, if I was looking at everything that we were doing at the time, if I go back to 2024, I was a sole trader. I was a one-man band. All my leads came from referrals, social media. But the social media leads that we were getting, typically, most people would have watched my content for 6 months before they'd reached out. So if you think about the thermometer of interest on how ready that person was to actually buy, far higher. So actually my conversions would be set at sort of 85%. I then made the decision I wanted to scale out. I wanted to impact more people. So then we start moving into, instead of just generating leads through referrals social media organically, then we started moving into having paid ads. Now, here's the big thing we've got. As we move into paid ads, the people we're talking who have no idea who I am. So what this will then do is impact the conversions. So what we had to then look at was, what are we doing in the earlier stages before people were getting on the calls to actually work out how to raise the thermometer of interest for that person to go from an interested party into being a buyer. And this is the problem that most people will face, is as you go from one area, so the good was organic leads, referrals, social media, but the problem with that was our low lead flow. So we'd only bring on 2 or 3 new clients a month. That's great when you're at the founder-led stage. But as you're growing and you're trying to triple the business, if you're going to move into paid ads, you have to expect the fact that that change is going to pull or push within the business at some area. So we want to be at a stage then and going, okay, what got us to here won't necessarily get us to that next stage. So like people say before, new levels, new devils. So you've got to start understanding what's going to be the things that got you to where you are now that's no longer actually serving you. So then you want to be able to work this out and go, okay, so now if this year, for example, you've got an appointment setter, you've got a closer. You go, okay, cool. What are the things that these guys need to increase their conversions? To increase their impact, to impact the decision-making process for your prospects, to make all of this work far, far easier. Because actually, if you're coming as a founder, and this is what we found with some solar companies recently, when you've got the founder and he's doing the selling, this increases the conversions at the start because they're talking to the boss. But as you start bolting in the people at the front end, that can dilute that type of messaging and conversations and actually weaken the sales process. So then what you do is go back to the 4 boxes for your leads, appointment setting stage, closing stage, follow-up stage. You have to make sure that the DMZ zones, so the dead man zones, as I call them, the gaps between each part of the process, these have to be far more effective than they would when you were a founder. It's such a different moment. So what we need to start then working out, we have to start understanding is in these gaps, in these areas, in these voids, what are the hurdles that happen? And this is what I found. The gap between each stage, the longer that time period actually happens, so that might be when it's a founder-led business, you might be able to go a week because they're really hot on who you are. So they're really sold on you. But actually, when it's coming through from your paid ads, people get tempted by other offers far, far quicker. So what we've got to start working out is how do we make sure that these gaps, and in the DMZ, you're filling these with your automations, that these feel and pull people forward towards you as a buyer. Now, I know a lot of businesses now that are still working in the way that they have gone from being a founder, leads come in, business is okay because all this is working, but now they're looking to scale. They don't actually have any type of systems. They don't have any real process that's effective and trackable. They are winging it with their conversations and they sort of guess what's going to work and what's not. And that can work okay when you're on your own, because you can be far more reactive. It's not effective. It doesn't work long term, but it will cause hurdles later. But what we've got to start thinking about is with your current system, with your current process, with the current overview that you have, if you're going to go from that stage of being as a founder into building a team, what worked for you as a founder and your needs as a founder and your prospects' needs from you as a founder is going to be completely different when you go into scale. Now, I want you to think about it as if it's like a thermometer of interest. So I'll give you a bit of a breakdown on here. It'd be great if StreamYard could put TikTok on there, by the way. It'd be so much easier because it could show both cameras. So let's say, for example, we've got a thermometer of interest. And let's say magically that someone needs to be at 85 degrees before they're ready to buy. Now, the problem is when you're coming from a founder-led point and you're trying to build into having a team, the difference is when you're a founder, the thermometer of interest and desire and want can be increased far quicker because they're talking to the owner. But when you break this category up for a team and you end up with an appointment setter and a closer, and you're not anything to do with the sales process, this will make a massive difference on the long-term play of what happens. Because this side here, this needs a real structure, needs a real plan. It needs to be able to elevate people's confidence. It needs to draw people in far faster. And if it's not doing that, what will end up happening is you'll get a lot of people that will disappear and they will just ghost. And this is why the ghosting stage will actually be massively increased on your leads as you move into building a team. This is why it's not just about sales training. Think of it like having a Formula One car. You've got the vehicle and you've got the driver. The vehicle has to be effective for what you are trying to achieve. The driver has to have the skills to get the optimum performance out of the vehicle. So what I want you to be able to think about now, if you think about the two sides of where you're at with a business, think about the vehicle itself, and then think about the driver, the person who's, whether that's you or someone else who's selling. If we were going to put the car on the ramps and we were going to have a look at every part of the vehicle, what are going to be the weaker performing parts of the vehicle? Is it going to be the fact that it leads your fuel? Is it going to be down to your engine? Is it going to be the processes? Is it going to be the systems? Is it going to be all the little tricks that you've got going on? Or are you saying that the vehicle that you have is performing in every single area to the highest standard it can be? Now, what happens for most business owners is they have copy and pasted a plan that was actually inherited by someone that was inherited by someone that was inherited by someone. So actually, the vehicle blueprint they're using now is actually out of date by quite a long time. A vehicle blueprint from even 3 years ago is out of date because of the way things are going with AI and automations and other areas. You have to realize that all of this stuff now that used to work isn't effective as much. And your industry could be completely transformed. So what we've then got to look at is, okay, if the vehicle has changed, does the driver also need different skills as well? And the answer is yes. Because if we have to go and look at what upgrades we need, we also have to look at what skill upgrades are also needed for the driver. And the driver is you or your salesperson. The vehicle is your systems. So then you start to uncover a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more where the weak points actually are within the current vehicle, so your system. And then you can work out what is actually the optimal performance that we're trying to get to. And once you start working all that out, then you can start looking at the small tweaks and upgrades that actually need to be put in place. And then what you start working out, what are going to be the instant fixes and what are going to be the long-term fixes. So you could, for example, bolt in automations into your business that could be an almost instant fix. You could have a series of automations that you did now, put them into business, and then everyone that's going through, if they're in that gap of the DMZ, the dead man zone, normally there was not a single thing there, and now there's a thing in that area, that means this is going to be a fast win. On your driver, if you're going to improve the sales skills, let's say, for example, currently they don't handle any objections. If you show them how to handle objections, that again can get you some fast wins. But then also what you can look at is the long-term fixes that will also happen as time goes on and people get more effective in each of those areas. And this is what I want you guys to be thinking about. What are going to be versus the long term. And you start assessing this within the business. And this is one of the easiest things. The long-term stuff you're doing, it is worth planting these seeds, but recognizing not an instant ROI. Okay? But then on the flip side of that, you can start looking at what can I do now that will actually increase revenue, increase conversions, increase engagement, increase deal flow, or shorten deal cycle. Because if you get this right, the changes and the adjustments you put into the business, all of this will make a world of difference. And this is one of the things that we're doing now. This is why when we put in at the start, when we said at the start of this, but we've now we're now implementing the conversion audit for people's businesses, is because for most business owners now, they don't know what exactly they are looking at versus what is actually the potential for what they're trying to achieve. And this is why it's so important now. But if you've got a business, if you're trying to improve sales, if you're trying to improve revenue, but you haven't put the vehicle on the ramps and looked at all the inner workings, looked at the systems, looked at the potential, that can be a huge hurdle of why you can take the next 2-3 months to really get your January moving forward. So it's vitally important we start working out what are the current processes versus potential. And when I say potential, we mean like the high industry standard. And then we want to work out the current, what we said, driver versus the potential. And this might be the fact is you selling versus a team or external salespeople. And this is why all of this makes a massive difference to what you guys are trying to actually achieve. It's a huge part of this. And I can't stress it enough. The vast majority of the time, people are not really thinking about these areas. What they're always just looking for is add on more. And adding on more does make sense, but the hurdle that we face is if currently within your business, you're sat here looking at all of this stuff and you're not thinking, okay, what are the short-term upgrades in the business that's going to increase the revenue, conversions, engagement, deal flow, and shorten the sales cycle, but the long-term upgrades that are going to enable the whole business to grow, all of this makes a massive difference in the long-term impact of where your business goes. And actually, what a lot of people focus on is they do stuff now that's not going to give them the impact that they expected because they've actually not been aligned on the back of those goals. It's super important you work all that out. And I'll be back in 2 minutes. Okay, so the whole point behind everything that we're talking about here is trying to work out for you guys what are going to be the immediate steps that need to be put into place for the business to move forward. What are going to be the short-term upgrades? What are going to be the long-term upgrades? And also recognizing, and it sounds so silly, the difference between the two. If you go and make the long-term upgrades now, but then you're moaning 3 weeks later. So for a lot of people who'll go and work on SEO, you know, it's going to take probably 90 days. If you do it and then you're looking tomorrow and you're like, what's happened? That's not a smart move because you're not giving it enough of an opportunity to actually evolve. In the same way, if you're going to go and hire a team member, so for example, you hire a salesperson, but you don't have any scripts, you don't have any objection manuals, you don't have any specific, if I can learn to sell, training, you don't set any KPIs. If you're not doing any of this stuff, but you're expecting to have a massive increase, you are really leaving it. What is going my spelling today? In revenue. All of this is being completely and utterly left to chance. You've got to go off and fix those smaller areas that are going to give you the biggest impact. So, for example, giving people a structure and a framework to follow, helping people understand when they get certain objections, what they can go and say, what they shouldn't say, setting rules in place and giving specific training, having base level KPIs for that person to be able to follow. If you're not giving people all of this stuff, you cannot expect people to magically come in. Hiring a salesperson, it's not like hiring Rambo. They're not coming in to fix everything in your business. And also, if you don't have a lot of this stuff, it's going to be less of an opportunity that they see. We're going to be doing more and more of this over the space of the next year. And I want you guys to make sure you're focusing in. So make sure you're giving all this a follow. Make sure you're turning it on. Turn on the notifications so you get notified when these trainings come in. because we really want to make sure we're helping you guys out in 2026. All right. I'll speak to you all soon. Yeah. Mm-mm-mm.